Greeting and salutations. I am Lloyd, a producer at LCD Productions, and I have come to share this new series of visual audiobooks with you, the listener, the supporter, the viewer. Together we will go on a journey like never before, fly to new heights with Project Aerospace, explore new land and cityscapes with photations, even change the dimension of time through the power of time-lapse photography from live to tape. We'll even travel beyond the mind's eye into worlds captured and generated through animation from Thumbs United daily animation series. As we together go on these journeys filled with photography and theater of the mind, I hope you remember the core belief that we hold, that anyone can become the master of art, meaning that it is not some born skill what makes someone good at being creative. It is a desire to practice and spend time being creative that creates the master. I hope that these films, photography, and stories inspire you to set some time aside and practice some creativity. I believe if we all spend more time creating and being constructive, the world would be a better place, a more friendlier and fulfilling place. Thank you for coming. Let's begin this journey. This is Live to Tape with a partnership with Project Aerospace to create the visual audiobook of the Girl Aviators and the Phantom Airship. Chapter 8. Hester Ruby. The door of the shed had been opened wide, but Fanning closed it swiftly as if in great anxiety to conceal what was within. Then it was that Peggy first became aware of something she had not noticed before. Above the portal was a signboard upon which was painted the staring red letters, Office and Works of the Fanning Harding Aeroplane Company. Hardly had Peggy disguised this astonishing sign before Fanning took a startled surprise replaced by a smile, advanced cap in his hand to meet her. "Why, whatever brings you here?" he asked with an air of easy familiarity which Peggy disliked so much. "I guess that's the sign gave you a kind of start, eh?" "It certainly did," agreed Peggy, "and it gives me even more of a start to see you working, Fanning." "Oh," grunted the youth, beneath whose blue overalls were a visible pair of godly socks, the kind he affected. I guess you think that I can't make good as well as anyone else when I try. Roy wouldn't go into a deal with me on that aeroplane of his, so I just got busy and started to concern of my own." "Do you mean you are actually building an airplane?" "Yes, got orders for several of them," rejoined the swaggering youth. "So far I've only had Gid to help me, but I guess I'll have to enlarge the plant pretty soon. You see, that Roy would have been wiser to sell me that plane of his at the start-off. As things are now, the Harding Airplane Company is going to be discount anything in its line. The Harding Airplane Company is going to discount anything in its line." "Well, I'm glad of that," said Peggy briskly, and with some trace of asperity. Fanning conceded confidence. An air jarred upon her sadly. "But it came over here to find Mr. Gibbons. I want him to repair a rod for me." "Why, that's off an airplane," exclaimed Fanning eagerly. You must have come to Earth in the Golden Butterfly quite close to here." "Oh yes, that's in the other field yonder," rejoined Peggy, some instinct telling her not to disclose the true object of her visit here. "My motor went wrong and I had to descend." "What field did you come down in? That one by the clump of woods around the bend in the road?" asked Fanning, with just a trace of an anxiety in his tone. "Yes, it was lucky I was so close, Morgan and Gills." "What? Morgan and Gills were there?" Fanning seemed tremendously excited all of a sudden. "Why, yes, what of it?" But Fanning had pulled himself together. "Oh, nothing," he said in a matter-of-fact tone. "I only thought they were a long way from home, that's all. But here comes Gid now. Hey, Gid, Miss Prescott wants a rod welded. Can you do it for her right away?" "Sure," responded the ill-favored blacksmith, shuffling up, his chin more briskly than ever. His shifty blue eyes blinked like a rat-beady orb as they took the bit of metal. A flaw, he declared, examining them. Wonder it didn't break sooner. Come on to the forge, miss, and I'll fix it for you in a brace of shake. Off he shuffled toward the ramshackle forge. Peggy followed. Behind her came Fanning. As past the cottage, Hester Gibbons came flying down the path, but stopped at the sign of Fanning. The youth dropped further behind as Peggy followed Gid into the forge, and the bellows began roaring as they began to talk in low tones. Do you think she can suspect anything? Asked Hester at one point. Not a thing, was the confident response. That the pale-faced old gopher Morgan was in the woods this afternoon, though. She told me that the existence of the Hardings Aeroplane Company had become known rather before I wanted it to. However, they may as well know now as any other time that they aren't the only flyers in the air. I guess the Harding aeroplane will beat anything in its line ever seen. I guess it will, laughed Hester, and then, for some unknown reason, they both burst into fits of immoderate laughter. Evidently something connected with Fanning's new enterprise was deemed highly amusing by both of them. Peggy left without seeing Hester, although from behind a blind in the college, the girl watched at her. Peggy left without seeing Hester, although from behind a blind in the cottage, the girl watched her closely enough. Gid, whatever her other shortcomings might have been, was a good blacksmith, and the rod was well repaired. Peggy soon had it adjusted, and was about to clamber into the chassis and start home when a shout from the road made her look up. An automobile stood there, and it were Jess and Jimsy. They hailed her excitedly, and Pam hastily threw down the switch which had been adjusted and hastened across the field to them. She soon saw that Jess was waving a leather pocket case above her head and that her face was flushed and excited. "My dear, whatever has happened?" she cried as she came up to the side of the auto. "Happened?" echoed Jess. "Why, my dear, the most extraordinary, explicable thing you ever heard of. In other words, we're up in the air, and, quote the slangy Jimsy, even if we don't own an aeroplane. You see this case?" cried Jess, extending the leather wallet for Peggy's inspection. "Well, that's the case that held Mama's jewels. It was returned most strangely to us this afternoon. We found it on the porch after lunch. Oh, Jess, the jewels were in it. I'm so glad." "No, girlie, it was empty." "Empty?" echoed Peggy. "And nobody knows how it came there?" "No, we must have been at lunch at the time. None of the servants know anything about the matter, either. It's a real dark and deep mystery." "It's all of that, my dear," Watson proclaimed Jimsy, folding her arm and scowling in imitation of the famous detective of fiction. "Why on earth should the thief want to return the wallet? You think he's dodged such a risk of being arrested?" But Peggy had been looking at the wallet which had so amazingly reappeared. "Why, yes, Jess," she cried. "It's all mud-stained. It looks as if it had been buried somewhere." "It certainly does," agreed Jimsy, "but even that doesn't seem to give any more to go on than the theory that the jewels have been buried someplace and been dug up again," put in Peggy quickly. After some more conversation, the group was about to break up when Jess exclaimed suddenly, "Oh, by the way, did you hear about Jeff Strokes?" "No, I see you haven't. Well, he's been appointed wireless operator of Rocky Point." "Oh, I'm so glad," cried Peggy impulsively. "That's been his ambition for a long time." Rocky Point was a projecting neck of the land about 2 miles east of Sandy Bay. It was quite an important signaling station for ships passing up and down the Sound. The position which Jeff Strokes had secured, a lucrative one in a way, and, at any rate, was in direct line of promotion. The two Bancrofts waited to watch Peggy take off in the air. The two Bancrofts waited to watch Peggy take the air in her now staunch airplane. It was not until she had vanished with a whirl and a whiz that Jimsy thought of starting his own car. "Gracious," cried Jess, as they sped along, "how I wish that mystery of the jewels could be cleared up." As she spoke, they were passing by the cottage occupied by Gid Gibsons. "Oh, look, there's that horrid Fanning Harding," "And get Gibson's daughter at the gate," cried Jess. At the same instant she uttered the exclamation, Hester Gibbons looked up in the time to see Jess' gaze concentrated upon her. She whisked about her skirts, swinging as she did so, but she did not turn quickly enough for Jess's sharp eyes not to see that she snatched at something she had been wearing at her throat. The millionaire's daughter was almost certain that the object Hester snatched at in such a hurry was a ruby brooch, or at least an imitation of one. She had distinctly caught a ruddy flash in Hester's hand moved across her throat. Jimsy too had noticed it. It seemed, for he suddenly observed, "Seems queer for Hester to be wearing jewelry. Her father must be making money fast nowadays." "Yes," said Jess, but her voice was distant and preoccupied. She was certain that her eyes had not deceived her. It had been a ruby that Hester Gibbons had pulled off and hastened to conceal. Obeying an impulse, she turned and gazed back over the top of the turnkey. Through the dust cloud behind the car, she could see that Hester and Fanning Harding were once more in deep conversation at the gate. She wondered what they could find so engrossing to talk about, and so speculated on several other things. She, however, avoided mentioning her sudden arousal suspicions to Jimmy. He was so hastily inward she made a resolve to seek out Peggy the first thing the next day, and to compare notes with her. She could not help feeling the matter were assuming very complicated. She could not help but feel that matters were assuming a very complicated aspect. That was Chapter 8. The next chapter is Chapter 9, A Race Against Time. Thank you for experiencing this journey we have created here at LCD Productions. For more information on how to support these films and projects, visit photations.com/support. Fine art photography prints from journeys around the world can be purchased from photationsstore.com, and digital downloads of our photography and visual audiobooks is available for personal use. Commercial use is available at a different rate. Thank you for your time. I hope to see you here again.